Good morning. I'm Vinny Furtado. I'm the Public Works Superintendent in town. I was asked to present the stormwater bylaw on behalf of the town. This updated version of the bylaw was originally passed in May 2019. This updated version of the bylaw is supported and approved by the Board of Public Works, the Planning Board, and Conservation. So the premise of the bylaw is to prohibit illicit connections. Illicit connections would be someone inadvertently having their sewage tied into a storm drain, and also control stormwater runoff during construction. It also requires design standards for development projects so that if this occurs, stormwater will be treated not only during the construction phase, but during long-term operation and maintenance as the project's completed. Other than updating the current bylaw, which again was approved at town meeting in May of 2019, the premise of this updating is also to direct an applicant that this would be applicable to the correct municipal department. The original bylaw from 2019, as well as the updated version, is taken from the existing erosion control regulations from the Planning Board. MS4. As part of this, I believe it's important to talk about MS4 and the permit that we have. Basically, in any community, the sewage and drainage either go in one pipe or two pipes. In our community, we have a two-pipe system where stormwater goes in a different pipe than sewage. The EPA calls this a municipal separate storm sewer system, and because everything in the world is an acronym now, MS4, and because we are an MS4 community, as we have separate pipes, we were issued a permit back in 2003. From 2003 to 2018, the town had been following the required protocols of the permit that was given to us. Stormwater education that we put on cables, at the library, on the internet, sweeping streets, cleaning catch basins, and compiling and submitting an annual report. In 2018, the EPA upped the ante, and they required all MS4 communities, including Fairhaven, to have to reapply for a new permit. The new permit, which we've had now for 6 years, built upon the prior stipulations that I mentioned, and now we have many more requirements. And again, the whole premise of this is to improve the quality of the receiving waters, where now stormwater is the biggest contributor of pollution in our waterways. The town is now required to continue with public education and outreach, and we have to target our audience to ensure that residents and businesses are aware to not throw away various materials down the storm drain, and to be aware of pollutants such as fertilizer and sediment that can be washed in the storm drain when it rains. We had to map our entire drainage system, collect samples at all of the outfalls during both dry weather and wet weather events. Depending on the results yielded from these aforementioned sampling, if there were high bacteria counts, we would have to react accordingly and potentially remove, if there were high counts, do an investigation and remove any kind of sewage that may be inadvertently going into the drain by mistake. We're required to conduct annual stormwater training. We have quite a few standard operating procedures. We have a stormwater management plan. The town now must require and issue a stormwater permit to any contractor conducting construction in the town, and we're required to enforce a bylaw that was created for this purpose. And again, one of the reasons why we're updating this is for this very reason. We have to have a stormwater pollution plan that we have to follow, for not only for our DPW facility, for all of our municipal buildings, and we have to follow good housekeeping practices. Although the town has required erosion control per our subdivision regulations for years, as part of our 2018 MS4 permit update, if you will, we had to codify what had been in practice and ensure that all development is subject to the same standards. So back in 18, when we were required to do this, again, although we had the erosion control regulations, the final version of what we had submitted in May of 19 wasn't exactly what the final version had to be. But the Board of Public Works had asked the EPA for an extension so that we could tweak the language, and we were denied. And we were told that if there was not language codified, that we would be subject to administrative penalties. So back in 19, we approved and codified the erosion control regulations and made it a bylaw, knowing that in the future, we were going to have to tweak it. So what's new? Section 1.4 creates a stormwater authority. The stormwater authority is a panel comprised of the superintendent of public works, the conservation agent, and the director of planning, and or any of these people's designees. The reason for the panel is to ensure that the bylaw that's approved will be adhered to and the correct respective board is hearing the matter. In brief, nothing is going to change other than this creation of a panel. If what is presented has to go to planning, it's going to go to planning. If it has to go to conservation, it's going to conservation. If it's something to do with illicit connections, drainage issues, it will go to public works. If you read the current version of what was approved in 19, it is not very user-friendly and does not direct an applicant to the right location. So again, the premise of this was not only to direct an applicant to the right location, to the right board, it was also to tighten the language to reflect MS4 compliance. A noted change is that the current bylaw requires projects disturbing land more than 40,000 square feet be issued a permit. We're asking that this be reduced to 20,000 square feet so that the folks who look into this, conservation and planning, can have more control over what's going in the storm drain and also cleanup of erosion during a construction project. In addition to that, any project disturbing 5,000 or 20,000 square feet will be subject to an administrative review. It may not fall into the need of erosion control, but at least a respective board will be looking at this for the protection of the town. And an enforcement or a public hearing that is currently dictated to occur within 90 days will happen within 30 days, which is much better all the way around. So a quick summary. Multiple stormwater bylaws that currently exist with different boards, again, planning, Concom, and the Board of Public Works, are going to be consolidated into one bylaw and regulation to streamline the permitting process and make sure that every project is held to the same standards and meet the requirements of our federal MS4 permit. Another update would be moving the content out of the bylaw and into regulations is going to give the respective boards a lot more flexibility to update any change in a public meeting format rather than having to go to town meeting anytime the EPA changes something that we're going to be forced to change. Some of these matters would be permitting and compliance procedures, stormwater management, erosion control, and performance and design standards. Rather than having the BPW as chief cook and bottle washer, as it's currently written under 194, the Stormwater Authority, this panel of BPW, Conservation, and the Director of Planning are going to funnel all the applications that come in, and they're going to direct what's presented to the appropriate board. Again, we'd like to lower the threshold for stormwater permit from the current 40,000 square feet to 20,000, where a permit will be required, again, to give the town greater control. And in addition to that, anywhere between 5,000 and 20,000 square feet of disturbance at least be subject to an administrative review. That's it. Thank you very much for your time, and hopefully town meeting will pass this bylaw so we can comply even further with the EPA's requirements.